Welcome back, everyone, to this special hour of RFL dealing with the developmentally disabled. Now, certainly a lot to consider here when you're talking about how to care for arguably our most vulnerable population. Well, joining us today, two men with two different views on how that common goal ought to be accomplished. Dr. Glenn Lambert, he's a member of the Board of Institutional Trustees of Hunterdon Developmental Center, and we're also joined by Dr. Dan Keating, he the Executive Director of the Alliance for the Betterment of Citizens with Disabilities, the organization providing community-based services to approximately 10,000 people with developmental disabilities and their families throughout the state of New Jersey. Gentlemen, thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right, let me, if I can, start with you, Dan, and I know there's going to be certainly a lot of levels, both of bureaucracy and a lot of voices that are going to make the ultimate decision here, but I make you king for a day in New Jersey here. If it was up to you, would you close all these state institutions?
Ultimately, I believe that we do not need institutions, that we could serve people in the community, all circumstances being right. Now, we can't do it today because the circumstances don't exist, but ultimately I believe this is a civil rights issue and that people have the right to live in the community. And by putting people into institutions, developmental centers, we stigmatize them and we devalue them by treating them separately from the rest of the community. I believe that we should include people in our communities, not exclude them.
When you hear that, this is an issue of civil rights, devaluing folks. You're at Hunterdon right now. You can speak to this firsthand. You see this population. Do you agree with them?
No. I think there's a choice factor here, and that's a civil right, that these citizens deserve to be given the best possible treatment they can for their disability. We find that at the developmental center, these are the most handicapped, the most disabled, and most profoundly retarded individuals. And consequently, they just are not able to be given suitable services in their home or in the community.
Just by nature of saying that people need to be segregated and separated from our community, that we are devaluing people because we are not giving them the opportunity to participate in their homes and in the community. Let me speak
to that if I could, Dan, because this came from a comment, and this was symptomatic, I'd say the majority of the emails we received, the postings, et cetera. This one coming from Pam, who says, I am the sister of a resident of Woodbridge Developmental Center and also the mother of a 27-year-old son with Down syndrome who is successfully included in our home community. I am a strong advocate of community inclusion for our citizens with disabilities, but I also know that for my brother, it would be an inappropriate and cruel placement. This is why I fully support a continuum of options for our most vulnerable citizens. And I gotta tell you, they lined up, the families there, to get in my ear when I came and said, listen, anybody who tells you they're dehumanizing my brother, my son, my husband, my wife, whatever my family member, I can't tell you what they say, doesn't know, fill in the blank, because if they were here, they'd see that they couldn't A, thrive, in this case in a community center, or B, could never handle the transition from the only life they've known. It's not that we're dumping them here because we don't want to be around them. It's that this is the best place to take care of them. How do you respond to Pam and others?
Well, my response is that from the get-go, people were asked to make a decision, and they made a decision. And once they've made that decision, that they need to defend that decision. And again, I'm not going to argue today that the people who are working with these folks in our developmental centers have anything but the best of intentions. I understand that. I'm talking more from a societal perspective, where we need to embrace people with disabilities and include them in our communities and not segregate them and push them off, because there still is a stigma, and the general population maintains a stigma towards people with disabilities, that they're helpless and that they can't do things. And our most significantly or most severely a person with a disability still has value, and we need to focus on what people can do and not what they can't do.
I don't see the clients in the developmental center as helpless. They are given a lot of educational opportunities to that level of ability. They have habilitation plans that are individualized. They get to associate with their fellow clients as well as the staff. They have great deal, some of them have a great deal of love for each other back and forth.
Do you get mad when you hear the word dehumanizing?
Yes, yeah, it's not dehumanizing. I think it's a very humane type of care given to these clients. They are very unfortunate that they have to be in an institution, but the care that they are given is the best that can be given. It cannot be achieved generally in the community on that 24-hour basis.
If you walk, and we spent a day both at a community center and Hunterdon. At Hunterdon, you got 8 around-the-clock physicians. You've got around-the-clock nurses. You've got people trained in the most acute cases. We walked to a community center, all well-meaning people, but they didn't have remotely the infrastructure a developmental center had, and a lot of the folks, their principal complaint was pay. They were making, in some cases, little over minimum wage. There's different elements of this population. I'm not, again, trying to put them all in one size fits all, but if you take the most acute cases that they have at Hunterdon, and then move them to a community center, to suggest they're going to get the same quality of care, it doesn't pass the eyeball test.
Well, I would argue that if we did a true study of the medical need of those folks and the amount of medical intervention that they get,
Right.
it would not be as much as we make it out to be.
We sit down a year from now. A, do you think there's going to be any resolution to this? And B, do you think it's some grand bargain here, or do you think it's all or nothing?
These are frail, fragile people, and there's probably not another way to service them except with institutions. I'd like to see the population come down, of course, but I think as long as the clients have a choice and the families, the parents and the families have a choice as to where they are, we will still see institutions.
At the end of the day, a year from now, what is this thing going to look like?
A year from now, I think we will have moved, hopefully, the number of people that the governor's budget allows for, about 175 in the coming fiscal year. I believe we will still have developmental centers. I'm not suggesting that we can just shut them today. I think that 25 years from now, we may look back and we may not have any developmental centers. I don't know how long, but I think, again, that we can move in a direction of providing these services differently, and so that people will be embraced as a member of our community and not moved into a segregated facility.
I can buy that.
All right. Maybe a little consensus. My gosh, what's going on here? Dan, Glenn, gentlemen, doctors, thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right. When we come back, everyone, I gave you a little sample there of some of the huge amount of comments that we've received on this very issue from our viewers all week long. And when we return, I'll share more of them with you. Stay with us.